Hey, folks, for the 37th Rental Roundtable, we had on Don Hunley, the founder and CEO of Iron Pulse Solutions. Don's got an interesting background because he spent some time working at Synergy Equipment when they were at one location, saw that grow up to 20 locations on the marketing team, but also working on the floor there as well. Spent some time at JLG and then started Iron Pulse Solutions a year ago, really focused on digital marketing for 1 to 10 location equipment rental group. So there's a lot of people who understand equipment rental and there's a lot of people who understand digital marketing, but that gap of people who understand both is a very narrow set of the population. So this episode is very interesting for rental companies who are thinking about digital marketing. We talk about what's the number one mistake that rental companies make when thinking about digital marketing and what's the first place to start when you're kind of dipping your toe here. So hope you guys enjoy the episode. All right, everyone, welcome to the Rental Roundtable, episode 37 with my friend Don Hunley. Don, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, excited to talk. I saw you at AED last week, talking today, see you at A-Ray next week. So talking to you every week at this point, which is always fun. Excited for this episode in particular because, I think about, Venn diagram, sweet spots where people are like top 1%, right? And I think you have, decades of equipment rental experience and then also decades of digital marketing experience. So I think that intersection makes you really unique, especially raised to our audience who listens to the Rental Roundtable. So excited to dive in there. Just for people listening who don't know Don, just kind of go through some of your highlights, right? So you're marketing director at Synergy Equipment for 7 years, owner now of Iron Pulse Solutions, which was founded last year. You worked at JLG for 3 years, director of digital communication, former ARA Florida board member, former ARA national committee member, a whole list of stuff I could keep going through, right? Only bad thing, Don, is you're a Florida State grad and, not a great football season this year, 2-10. I don't know if you had to comment on that.
I tell you what, we had a really good run for a long time, so I was spoiled my entire life. And, until recently, it's been very painful, but, still an all to the day I die. So that's how I go.
And so, Don, we could go ahead and jump in here. And I just went through the high points of your background, but I'd love to hear your story, really. How'd you first get into the rental industry? Did you grow up with equipment, family connections? How'd you get involved and how did you sort of navigate to where you are now running your own digital marketing company focused on rental companies?
I'll tell you, everybody in the industry will say everything about this industry is about relationships. And, that's really how I got into the equipment business. Really good family friend of ours, Joe Scherzinger, owned Rental Inc. Up in the Panhandle, a few other states, and we talked fairly regularly, and he said, "Hey, there's a group of folks getting together about a new equipment company that's going to be based in Florida, and I think you should meet the leadership there and see if something happens." During that time, I was actually I was in marketing, but I was in the travel industry with private aviation as well, so. It was definitely a 180-degree turn when it came to what industry it was. But after meeting Steve Hollowell, Jeff Carter, that were starting Synergy Equipment at the leadership of JC Moss, it sounded like a really fun project. It was kind of a gamble. It was a startup company. I didn't know the industry, but fortunately, they allowed me to come in and actually learn the business first. So they said, "Listen, it's a really difficult business. It takes a long time to understand, but I want you to dive in. I want you to go sit on the counter, be an inside sales rep. I want you to go into the field. I want you to live on the job sites with the sales reps. I want you to ride in the delivery trucks when you're pulling a low boy and go to the job site, see what that's like, work with the service guys, see what they're saying." So really immerse myself in the business for basically the entire time I was there. So I was very fortunate to have leadership that, allowed a marketing guy to go out field and really figure out what it is that we're trying to sell and market. So, I was able to surround myself with really heavy hitters in the industry, like, the Adam Stegmans of the world, Scott Hazier and Whitney Page and Dustin Grimes, Dan Maitland. I mean, all these guys that have been in the business that really kind of took me under their wing and showed me what it was like to be in the business and the concerns they had and the things that we could do differently that had not been done before. So using their collective ideas and knowledge and actually taking those strategies and actually implementing them into marketing strategies, into sales operation strategies to make a function that actually supports whatever team that you had available, either rental or dealership, parts, service, whatever it may be, but actually using those collective ideas to make something really special.
Mm.
So that was a credit to them. Really, I'm really a product of the folks that I was able to surround myself with.
Mm. What's the whole idea? Tell me your friends, and I'll tell you where you'll be in 5 years, sort of thing, right? Like, we're product of our environment, importance of surrounding yourself with good people. So I think it's interesting. Like, you are essentially the marketing person first, right? And then you got this connection to the equipment industry. And generally, what I would see what happens is immediately start running ads, SEO, get on the marketing front. They didn't have you do that. They had you on the floor doing, I mean, pretty much every role across the company, right? You're at the counter, you're doing deliveries. That's not generally what a marketing person would do. I mean, how long did they actually keep you in those operations roles before they let you do marketing? Because I think it's probably a tremendous way to learn the industry.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest here. I still had to do my day job, which was the marketing guy, right?
Yeah.
But along with that, understanding the process, the operations. This business is heavily, very tangible. Everything in this business, you have to touch to move. You have to get somebody to do it.
Mm.
And I needed to understand that to really, take the marketing to the level that they needed it. This was a startup company. We didn't have a website. So what do we want to talk about? Well, we have a sales team now. So are we going to what CRM are we going to use? How are we going to use our
Mm.
sales operations efficiently? How do we get this order from the field to the counter, and then from the counter to the shop? And how do we make sure the machines are ready? And all of that, really supported each other when it came to the marketing piece, because without one, you don't have the other. You can market all day long and say you're the greatest and you have the best equipment. At the end of the day, if that machine doesn't get out on time
Mm.
and if it's not delivered in a workable fashion, you're not going to get the chance to get that second rent or that second sale. And that was really driven home to me about this business. And so I really had to make sure I understood that when I was talking to the folks that we were actually marketing to, which are
Mm.
typically your sub trades. So learning what they needed, learning what they do, and then learning how to portray that on, let's say, a digital platform or print or whatever it may be, was super important to the success of what we did.
I love that. I mean, we can almost stop the episode right here. There's one takeaway. It's like, get on the floor, right? For any role, if you're marketing or sales, if you're software, spend time with your customers, do the job yourself, right? Well, if you go back to that point, which is, I guess, over 10 years ago, think about your first month, didn't know a lot about equipment, you're this marketing guy. Like, what were the biggest things that surprised you? Or what were your biggest learnings in that first month or two as you sort of dipped your toe into the equipment rental industry?
To be honest, how many processes and procedures there were to actually get something out. So, whether you're selling, t-shirts or hats, whatever it may be, those processes may be simple, but in the equipment business, it's far more difficult. So really understanding that took a minute, to see what the service rep does, to see what the parts guy may do, to see what the rental rep needs to do, to know that equipment is going to break down no matter what it is. It's the business. It's not an if, it's a when. And if the best companies out there are going to survive are the ones that can react the quickest and be the ones that are doing the preventative maintenance the best to have the most uptime. So learning that trail, actually documenting every piece of that puzzle was a really cool project. Not only from a marketing sense of you have $1, you're going to spend it here. Now a lead comes, somebody visits your website, they want you to contact them, but everything that has to happen after that is the magic, and that's what should be
Mm.
celebrated.
Mm.
For all the different hands that touch a machine, regardless of how big you are, if you're a one store, if you're a 10 or 20 store, there's a lot of moving pieces to that. And that was, pretty mind blowing to me, just kind of coming in as this marketing guy to say, hey, we got a lead. Okay, why don't we have revenue from it? Well, there's a lot of pieces that go in it.
Exactly. Especially as the marketing people, you're generating these leads, but there's a lot of things that have to go right. I like the idea of the magic experience, right? Because that's ultimately what matters is the end customer and their experience. And how do you create a magic moment, right? And they click a button or they text you and then the machine shows up on time and it works and everything is smooth, right? Well, to make that happen, there's 1,000 things behind the scenes that have to go right. And we talk about as an industry, customer experience. A lot of people think it's like really great salespeople and a really great website. And it's important, but a lot of it's like, that's the tip of the iceberg. Underneath that, everything that has to go right to deliver that equipment on time that actually works with no issues, right? there's a lot that's involved there. I think you probably experienced that firsthand, which is probably great because if you hadn't done that, if you'd skipped over that point, you just went to generating marketing leads, you probably miss like the core of what the business is, right? I think every company, not just in the rental industry, but just generally, like having people spend time on the ground floor is just so important.
That's right. And having those relationships with the folks in the business was huge. We grew rapidly over that 7 years. I mean, from, one or two stores when I first got started to 20 at the end of my tenure.
Wow.
So very, very rapid growth, but having the relationship with your sales folks in the field, knowing they can just talk to you, about their concerns. Hey, you sent me this. This is what happened. Here's why. How can we improve this? It really goes a long way. In the marketing world, the marketing creates leads. Leads send them out to salesmen. Salesmen think they're trash because they call 10 of them, and 9 of them are unqualified. One is just kicking tires. So you really have to work to make sure that if you do have outside salesmen, or if these leads go to an inside person, could be an admin or could be a sales counter person, that you figure out a qualification process for
Hmm.
those specific leads. What are they looking for? Who are they? Are they a real person? Whatever it may be, you don't need to waste the time of your salespeople with qualifying something. So, the process that kind of came out of that was we would take that lead or the call internally first. We would qualify, figure out what they were looking for, what they need, how they found us, where they're at, and then we would get them to the proper person that would work in that territory. So that way, every time marketing would call that sales rep or even that inside salesperson, we say, hey, we have this person looking for XYZ. They need the machine here and they need it in this amount of time. So when they call, they are, doing their duties to find out application, to do any upselling possibilities. But ultimately, when marketing called them, they knew that it was most likely going to be a sale that's going to eventually put money in their pocket. So to give us the credibility, we had to do a lot of work behind the scenes before anybody in the company really even knew we had an opportunity to sell rent.
Yeah, so we're talking about like the magic moment from the rental company perspective, but it's also a magic moment for your sales team, right? Where they have this perfectly qualified lead at their doorstep, right? And I know sales and marketing, there's always a little bit of attention. And, I know, obviously Dustin Zielinski, if he's listening to this, former Synergy equipment sales guy, now works with us here at Quipli. And those guys are the worst, right? No, I'm just kidding. But so I guess my question is like kind of going back to your experience, right? You joined, there's like 1 or 2 stores with Synergy, and now, you go 7 years, right? You said what, how many stores? 10, 15, 20 at the end? Like what was
Yeah,
that
there was about
experience?
there was
Yeah.
about 20. I'm at the end of my tenure. They've
Yeah.
since expanded, so they're still doing great things. But during the time I was there, that's the expansion we had.
What was it like scaling that fast? Was it like hair on fire, or did it feel sustainable? We're just going to add another 2 stores every year. Like what was that experience like from your perspective?
From my perspective, it was a lot easier than our operations folks. From, like I said, everything's standard. You gotta find you got to find a property. You got to be in the right location. You got to have the equipment. You got to find the people. Everything about the equipment business, which a lot of your listeners or customers are dealing with on a daily basis. They don't have the luxury of just kind of being a marketing person and figuring out how we're going to get additional business. They have to figure out how to be a business. So I got to work with a lot of the folks that did all of that and enhance what they were trying to do with the marketing piece. What I did was teach or keep each individual store almost like its own business.
Huh.
They all operated on their own P&Ls and they all had their own leadership and sales folks. They all had different territories. Sometimes the different stores had different fleet mixes. So not every store was a plug and play, and it wasn't some big corporate plan that just pushed out leads to everybody. It was really designed for each store to have its own character and fleet. So that way, marketing is done for that area. So, from a data standpoint, yes, there was a lot of work on the back end to figure out where the job sites are going to be in the next 90 to 120 days, what type of work's coming in, what type of customers are going to be working on those job sites, what are our current customers going to do? Are they going to be working on those job sites? And then kind of giving some guidance on, say, hey, we have this area. that's got X billions of dollars in sales, or a job site valuation coming up, might be an airport job, might be a hospital. And we know these contractors are bidding on them, or they're going to be working on them. And we're going to have an opportunity to rent some equipment. So this may be a good spot for us to be in. So from a marketing guy perspective, I got to do the fun stuff, I like to say.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's one insight you said I don't want to skip over either around the pain point you said scaling from 1 to 20 locations roughly right over the 7-year period. It wasn't the sales and marketing side, it was operationally what you can handle. I think that's an important lesson because a lot of smaller companies, they go to business because they generally starve or they drown. I think what's underestimated is how often companies can drown. And there's actually a limit to how fast companies can grow because like you could generate all the leads in the world, right? But like that doesn't mean your company can actually handle it. And then you're just spending money on things that it's really a waste of money because you're not converting. Or if you are converting, it's creating a lot of downstream operational issues, which is eroding the customer experience, which is eroding your brand and trust long term. So I think it's an interesting lesson because if you're starting off, you're just like, give me any business I can, right? But like reality is like there's another side of it, which is you can grow too fast and you have to monitor both sides of that. You don't want to grow too slow and run out of money, but you can also grow too fast and not be able to deliver what you promised, right? And I think that was a key insight you skipped over right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely wasn't without its challenges, but at the end of the day, when you have good people behind it,
Yeah.
and everybody's kind of rowing in the right direction, it's the equipment business. It's going to be hard. Everybody would be in it if it was super easy. It's very capital expensive. The capital you got to put into it, and also the operations piece and the planning piece is very difficult to pull off. So, kudos to everybody that has done it and are doing it. And I've always told, the company, I like to enhance what we're doing, the relationships that are in the fields or at the store levels are key. That's going to continue to move your business. But when you can go out and find new business, new business is kind of the lifeblood of continuing to grow. You've got to find those folks that you don't know about. And that's a lot of what the effort of marketing does for a business. It's not going to knock down records, but it is going to enhance what you are currently doing for sure.
Yeah, so let's get into marketing a little bit. So you're Synergy 7 years, then you're at JLG for 3 years as director of digital commercialization, and last year you started Iron Pulse Solutions, right? That's what you're currently doing right now. What is Iron Pulse Solutions? Give me the 30-second pitch. What do you focus on today?
So I'll tell you, not only the experience with what I did specifically in rental, but actually going to the distribution side from the OEM, which was JLG, was very eye-opening for me in the industry. So I got to learn about that as well. So the process that was prior to a company receiving a piece of equipment that wants to get it on rent or wants to sell it, to see where it comes from and the difficulty to get it built and shipped and out to the stores was another eye-opening experience for me. So I got to work on the digital commercialization of a lot of different projects within the company, and also oversee the industry association relationship with the American Builder Contractor, ABC, which was another insight because I got to really get to know the end user, from a trade perspective. So all of that knowledge kind of came together, and then had the opportunity to start my own company, which is marketing for the independent equipment company that are, based in the U.S. Typically, 1 to 10 stores are looking for services that I have. It was really through the encouragement of a lot of the friends that I gathered during my time at the American Rental Association. From day one when I started with that association as a member company, getting to join the different committees over that time, ultimately joining the Florida board, getting to know those folks, and then participating on national committees. Some of those people from 10 years ago are still my friends to this day. And we're able to, kind of brainstorm different challenges over that time. So it really made me a better equipment professional, but also a better marketing person, because I could I could see and have exposure to different challenges across the country. So I took all of that experience because there's definitely a communication gap in between marketing folks and equipment folks. And I found that throughout my career. When the marketing guy comes in, they feel that they can't communicate to them about equipment. And then when the equipment guys come in, they feel like they don't communicate with the marketing guys about marketing. So I was in that position to be able to do both. And what I found was, even on, the equipment, the independent equipment company owners or leadership, they had that disconnect as well. I talked to many that would use a general marketing agency to do some of their digital marketing efforts, and a lot of the frustration was just that they didn't really understand the reports that they were being sent, and they weren't listening because they didn't necessarily understand what type of equipment they were adding to the fleet. And then ultimately the marketing company didn't understand who the end user of that specific type of equipment was. So there was a big learning curve when it came to an equipment company working with an outsider, let's say. The other piece to that is companies that do want to grow and they do want to expand into elevated marketing efforts. They don't necessarily know how to hire somebody for internal to do that. They can hire a tech, they can hire a salesman all day long, or a counterfolk or admin. That's fine. But when it comes to holding a marketing person accountable for what they should be doing, they just may not have the experience to do that. So they know they need somebody to come in and kind of do marketing, air quotes, right? A lot of folks think marketing, just posting on social media, maybe sending some emails out, looking at the website stuff. That's what I hear a lot. But and in regard to what they really should be doing, those business owners or leaders that are equipment folks don't really understand what they need to do, and then ultimately how to manage that person to hold them accountable for results. I found that there was a gap in those areas, and that's why I started Iron Pulse Solutions to really fill that gap, because I can see both sides of it, and I can kind of translate that into the equipment world.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good perspective. Like, there is a gap, and maybe more perceived in reality, of people who love equipment and people who really understand marketing. And that's why I started off. Like, you have this interesting background of, like, I don't know many people who have that unique experience, who's been on the floor of a growing rental company for many years, who also, with the marketing experience you have, I think is really interesting. And I think on your comment on, like, yeah, I just want to talk about website stuff, right? I think there's a perception that there's like a big red marketing button, and I'm going to push the marketing button. And it's like, it's obviously not that easy. So let's talk a little bit about, like, what goes into building out a marketing plan, right? Because this is what you do. You consult with, 1 to 10 location groups. I know at least one of your customers has been on at the Rental Roundtable, I know, and sophisticated groups. You work with smaller groups too, but really thinking about that holistic strategy. It's not just pushing the red marketing button, right? So I think one of the first things we talk about, right, is identifying the target customers. The phrase we would use at our company, ICP, ideal customer profile, right? So tell me about that. It's probably one of the first things you start with is who are we actually targeting? Who is that customer? Not every lead is created equal, right? So how do you go about that first process?
So getting the identity of that company, what are they really going after? Are they a homeowner rental company? Are they general tool? So, is somebody going down to a local shop to rent something to do a DIY project on the weekend? Or are they heavy industrial rental, where they're going after business to business contractors and doing long-term rental deals for very heavy equipment? So identifying themselves as one, and most folks kind of have a general idea of what they're in business for, because they're buying specifically for that. The second piece to that is understanding the fleet mix of what they have, and then listing out the types of trades that equipment will solve problems for. That's a big one, not only just from a business owner or business leadership perspective, but it's also very important to have a internal marketing campaign specifically to the team members on your staff that need to understand who we are, who our customers are, what we have to offer them. Because not everybody in the business is going to know exactly what the owner of the company or the leadership is really targeting unless they're told. So everybody from, a counter employee to the service tech to a driver, they should all have some education on what it is that we're actually marketing. Almost like a, crash course to sales. Here's the features, benefits, or here's the application process. for what our equipment is going to do for you. And they can have those conversations with folks in the field, in the shops, whatever it may be. Typically, a customer is really going to trust a tech or a driver a lot more than they're going to trust a salesman, because they know they got grease in their hands, their boots are messed up, their hard hats are 10 years old with a bunch of stickers on it. They've been around the business for a very long time, and they're going to tell it like it is. They're not getting paid more to fix your machine. They're there to do a job. They want to get uptime, and they're going to trust what those folks say. So internal marketing for that is very big. Understanding what your fleet mix is, understanding where your fleet mix growth opportunities are. So, we were just at AED last week. So folks looking to sign up to become dealers. And next week we'll be in Vegas for the ARA, where manufacturers are selling into the rental fleets to, for a rent to rent. So as they continue to find good deals or a new line that they may not have, they have to identify who they're going to go after in order to get a highly utilized product for their fleet. The last thing they want to do is buy a new line and be lowly utilized on it because they're not targeting the right trade.
So, I mean, just to state the obvious here, right? It's starting with your target customer first. So and then the fleet mix to support that. What you don't want to do is go buy the shiny object at the A ratio next week and then go, I hope my customers like this, right? You want to start with that persona, right? Of who are they, what do they want, and then you work backwards from there. Am I hearing you right?
Kyle, in a perfect world, yeah. Sometimes it just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
I've been there, I've been in that seat, and hey, listen, we have this, we got a great deal on it. I know that, there is some market, we need to find it, we need to push the sales folks to do it. But, you've got to have some sort of plan if you're going to put some CapEx into your fleet, to get it out highly utilized, making sure your dollar yield is high as well. You don't want to buy machines at the wrong price. So if the rental rates are not where they need to be to support a profit on that machine.
So when you get into the marketing side and the messaging side, right? So like, let's just say we got 10 rental companies in Atlanta, and they all sell to the same subcontractor sort of mix persona, right? They all generally have the same sort of equipment. What makes rental companies different? How do you differentiate in a market that's, we all have competitors, right? And that's equipment rental companies aren't unique, right? To that, they have independent companies they compete with. There's smaller groups they're probably competing with. They're obviously competing with the nationals. On the messaging side of what actually makes an equipment rental business different, a specific one, like how do you go about that, right? Because it's one thing to say, we have the best customer service, which a lot of people probably say, but how do you back that up? How do you actually, when you're thinking about the messaging on your website and the marketing ads, how do you really nail that value prop that makes a rental company unique?
I tell you, man, yeah, it's kind of a commodity nowadays. Some of the nationals have, kind of driven what the process and procedures should be, kind of like the Amazon effect. Everybody thinks that, if I order from this company, it's going to be the exact same experience as Amazon. And to be truthful, it's really not. Kind of like we started, everything about this business is relationships, and those customers have to understand there's a level of trust with the companies that they're going to rent from. At the end of the day, those machines are making them money and they're going to get the job done. This isn't just a leisurely buy, like because I want to. This is because I have to do a job. It has to get done. And the more experiences those customers have with multiple rental companies that prove that they do what they say they're going to do, their equipment is quality, the uptime is very high, they're going to continue to go back to those folks. That the challenges over the years, specifically with COVID and everything that happened with the supply chain, whoever had it got the deal. So rental reps and counters, they were just picking up the phone and taking orders. And now we're really getting back to having to sell or rent, your company. A lot of people may have a Bobcat T590 that are out in the field that can do the same job, but at the end of the day, who do they enjoy working with the best? Who keeps their promises? What machines have the highest uptime? And who's going to pick up their phone when they need you or when you need them? And when you can answer those things, you're going to end up being the first call. If you're not the first call, you're going to be the second or third. And ultimately, you want to be the first to have that opportunity. But if you don't have that first call, you for sure want to be second or third so you can get that opportunity when the number one fails.
As my partner who I work with here, Court, would say, we got to ETB, earn that beer, right? it's much harder than it was 2 years ago, right? Where if you had equipment, you got the rental and you got to earn it now. And I think you sort of nailed it, right? This is not a leisurely thing. I'm going to go to the movies sort of thing. Like this is like mission critical equipment that if it doesn't show up on time and if it doesn't work, there's like real costs associated with that, with downtime, right? And so it's around trust and reliability, right? And that's something you can earn over time, right? But how do you communicate that to a first time renter, right? You're running marketing ads and ultimately, right, trust matters, reliability, but I don't know this rental company. Like, how do you communicate that message to someone who's just hearing about a rental company for the first time?
A lot of times, if you pass the eye test and the smell test, to someone that's in need of equipment, they'll give you a shot typically because they can't find what they're looking for. So you have to position yourself to be found. So being found is number one. I've worked or I've seen and worked with rental companies across the country that are just heavily based in referral and relationships, and their website's a one pager that says, hey, we have these types of equipment, give us a call. And they're very successful. But at the end of the day, the new folks that are moving in the area, the transient workers, like I would say, that are working on, jobs that kind of travel city to city, they're not going to find you. So you need to be found first. And then you just, you need to take care of the home front when it comes to how do we want to look? Are we professional? Can they get the details of the equipment that they're looking for on the website? They don't need, $10,000 produced videos of machines working in the field. They see machines in the field every day. So I find a lot of companies that say, listen, we need some great videos. We need to show the equipment. Most of these people that are renting and buying know what equipment they're looking for. They want to see some specs. They want to see how much it lifts, how much it weighs. They want to see if it has high flow or not so they can run certain attachments. They're just looking for that information to say, okay, I'm going to give you a call. It looks like you know what you're talking about. So you don't have to be the most flashy. You don't have to put a ton of money, thousands or $100,000 into your websites in order for this to work. You just have to show you know what you're doing. You've been in business. We're going to do what we say. Give us a shot. If you like the first one, you're going to love the second one. But, if you give us that first shot and we fail miserably, we're probably not going to get that second chance at the next job.
For sure. And I think you mentioned the referrals and partnerships or relationship side of things, right? Like once they're in, do your best to retain that customer, right? Great service. Even if it breaks, fix it quickly, respond, that's how you win long-term, right? That's sort of I think about it as the speakeasy model. When I lived in DC, there was a speakeasy we loved to go to. And it was underneath a dentist's office that no one knew, but people loved it and would tell friends about it. There was no marketing, et cetera, right? That's the holy grail where your customers are selling for you, right? But if you're entering a new market and you're trying to compete for first-time renters with you, right? That's where you need to be, number one, found. And when they do find you, look professional, right? So, and that's the purpose of the marketing side. So how do I make my website found, right? Because I talked to a surprising lot of groups who are doing nothing on SEO or very little on SEO and very little on paid marketing, right? You don't need to spend $50,000 a month or $10,000 a month necessarily, but there is probably some element of takes money to make money sort of thing, right? What are some of the things you would coach someone on, building out their website, improving their SEO, improving their digital ads, improving their social, all these things, right? A lot of buzzwords. How do you start to think about a marketing strategy 101 for a rental company?
So, I look in the different customer avenues. The website isn't everything, to a company. Paid ads aren't everything. It's a group of things that work together. So you may have a sales team that's going to be, pushing out your product every day. Your relationships and referrals, your traditional marketing. In our business, there's a lot of sponsorship opportunities. A lot of folks that get involved in associations and then sit on a committee and, start to develop relationships that way. And that's super important as well. Digital marketing is its own piece of the marketing that should supplement what you're doing on the other side, in addition to data marketing. So taking the data of the industry, understanding that data, pushing it into some of your systems to be able to come up with the best avenues that you can push the sales team and the relationships into based on the digital side. So to answer your question specifically on the website, yes, you got to do SEO. That's a buzzword for search engine marketing. Everybody uses Google to some extent. And when companies pop up number, above the fold, which is typically your first 5 to 10 folks that show up, that's Google saying, hey, these are relevant to what you're searching for. That doesn't just happen. There's a lot of work that goes into the back end of that. There's a lot of technical things behind the website that have to be set up correctly. And then ultimately the content, you got to write about what you have. You got to do it in a certain way that Google likes. They give you little check marks of, yep, they did that. They did that. So you show up locally for people that are searching, and you can actually engage with them through your website. So, I won't get into a lot of the marketing specifics because it'll just bore everybody. But if you don't have that, let's just call it stuff, if you don't have the behind the scenes stuff set up correctly, you're always going to be against the wind when it comes to getting organic traffic, folks that are finding you because they're searching. Now, the other line of that on digital marketing is paid advertising. So folks, have a little bit more experience in this. They may have rented a billboard down the street from their shop. They may have put machines on the fence and put a sign up. They may have purchased an ad. If they've been around a minute, they used to buy yellow page ads that would show their business first, or have a little section in there, or buying an ad on a TV, whatever it may be. Those are direct ad buying campaigns that are going to give you visibility for people that are not only searching for your equipment, but even some people that aren't. So when you're renting that billboard on the busy street, you're going to talk to that rep and they're going to say, hey, we have 10,000 cars a day that pass by here. Well, that's great if you're selling gas, right? And you have a gas station because everybody's going to need it. But if you're in the construction equipment rental or sales business, probably 2% of the people that are going by that billboard could potentially be your customers, right? So you're paying 98% of a premium for people that are not looking for your product and could frankly never use it. So when you're buying paid ads online, you're only paying for the folks that are specifically searching for keywords that you're paying for. So if someone's looking for equipment rental in my area, you're buying that. If somebody's looking for, a Bobcat track loader, you're buying that, or Mini X or Case, whoever it is that you represent on your fleet. When it comes to application or brands, whatever it may be, you've got to target them. And those are the folks that you're going to be paying for. Yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more, but it's qualified eyeballs looking for you. Many, many different avenues to go down. I enjoy the old school ones, going out and getting relationships, going to the committees, actually putting in some sweat equity to the industry really goes a long way with customers, knowing that you're here to help them, and then the business comes. But in the meantime, we still have bills to pay. So I need to do some advertising online to make sure that I'm getting people that don't know me into the door to give me an opportunity to either rent or sell them equipment.
And that's obviously what the state of digital marketing is. It's hyper focused, like, especially with the retargeting ads with Google and Facebook. Like if someone goes to your website, you can retarget them and all of a sudden they see you everywhere, sort of thing. Like, what do you think the biggest mistake rental companies make when thinking about marketing, maybe digital marketing in particular?
Oh boy.
Top 10. No, I was kidding. Give me one.
I think honestly, I talk to a lot of companies, and most of them, they want to start with social media, and I like it. I think there's an application for it. There's a lot of companies that do it really well, and it's very entertaining to watch. At the end of the day, when I'm a marketing guy, I want to look at what sales came from my efforts. So internally, I'm a sales guy, marketing guy, throwing the net out, seeing what's coming in, but we can make some really cool content just to get eyeballs. If your leadership and your ownership is happy with just the amount of people that saw a video, that's awesome. Hey, we had 10,000 people look at it. That's great. But if you can't point to the bottom line and say, hey, we sold 10 machines because of it, it's a lot of time and money that's wasted not getting additional rentals or sales.
So on social media, are you saying it's hard to attribute business to the social media, or are you saying it actually just generally doesn't generate business, generates eyeballs, but doesn't convert? I guess, which one are you saying?
I think it's both. I think there's a level of attention that is going to bring to your business. If you're just posting a new deal of the week, somebody scrolling, through their social media, they're going to scroll right by it. It might be a top of mind thing for them. Eventually, they'll realize who you are. You may see a video of a new excavator on top of a pile digging and with some cool effects on it. You're going to get some eyeballs on it, and that's really cool. But it's hard to attribute what sales are going to come out of that. Because 6 months from now, when that person walks in the door and he needs to rent or buy or even buy a part or something, he's not going to be the first one to tell you that he saw a video on social media and that's the reason he's here. So you've got to have some money that you can spend if you're going to do social media that you can't directly attribute sales to. Now there are ads that you can buy on social media as well, just kind of like the Google ads, that you can get more immediate feedback from folks that came in through a lead. That does exist. But when you are targeting people with ads that are specifically searching for a solution to a problem they're having, it's a more attentive crowd and it's a more qualified prospect. Everybody sees, you go to a job site, you're looking at the guy sitting in the excavator on top of the pile. He's waiting for the dump truck to come by, or the rock truck, depending on how big the job site is. And, he's got his foot up, he's got the door open, and he's scrolling through social. And if he sees your video, that's great. But at the end of the day, he's not going to pick up the phone and call because he needs something because he saw that. And I hope somebody can prove me wrong one day, but it's just hard.
It's entertaining.
It's hard to attribute that to a direct sale.
Yeah. And I think what you talked about earlier, right? This is not a leisurely purchase. This is mission critical for a job that has financial constraints and time constraints. And when you're going to a website, I want to see what you have, what are the specs, what's the price, what's the availability, bells and whistles around cool videos and all this stuff, and drone shots, cool. But at the end of the day, I got a job to do, and I want to make sure I have that information. So I've seen, if you look at the Nationals, you talked about earlier, how they're driving innovation. Their stuff has seemed to move more transactional, right? You can do the whole order online. You can log into the website, request extensions, pay bills. It's not crazy, cool looking websites. I mean, they've spent a lot of money on it, but if you look at what they're really focused on, it's how do you do the transaction, keeping it tight, clear, transparent. That ultimately builds trust, because people if they're bored, they can go to YouTube and watch videos. But if they're ready to rent something, they want to see what you have, what the specs are, what the price is, right?
That's right. If you've got the branding money to go out and get a NASCAR and put your logo on it, that's great. That is going to drive some eyeballs. Folks are going to feel the brand. If you've got brand money, that's awesome. If you're small and scrappy and you've got a certain amount of money that you can spend and you need to prove that it's making money, there's definitely other avenues for that.
I was going to ask, when is that? When do you go first? And I'll ask my question.
I was going to tell you one of the biggest views videos that we had when Bobcat kind of came out with the remote control option on their track loaders. And I was sitting in the yard and hitting a pile, and then the machine drove by, and you can kind of see there was nobody in it. It generated a lot of traffic. A lot of people looked at it, but at the end of the day, leadership came and say, "Hey, how many did we sell?" I couldn't tell them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Cool video though.
Yeah. Great video. Ask, love it.
When is Iron Pulse getting the NASCAR sponsorship? Is that coming out this year?
Yeah, maybe 2030,
maybe next year.
I think. They've been knocking down my door, to get that sponsorship, but probably not. No.
Yeah, one day. Well, Don, it's been awesome having you on. It was great seeing you last week at AED. See you next week at ARA. I guess final question, like, if there's one piece of advice for an equipment rental company listening to this who's thinking about marketing, what's the one thing you would say?
Oh man, the one thing is just make sure you understand the fleet mix. You've got to know this. Most of you do. You can list it out, but if you started marketing several years ago and you've added to your fleet or you've defleeted a certain cat class, you got to update your marketing. You've got to put it on the website. You've got to make sure you're doing your SEO and your paid ads to reflect what you currently have. You got to spend your money smart. So if you have current ads for a cat class that's highly utilized, back that off a little bit and throw some more money into a cat class that's lowly utilized. we've got to make sure we're making money on each type of class of equipment. And if you're just, writing the blind check every month to marketing efforts just because it's muscle memory, fleet is very fluid and so are the demands. So you've got to adjust that and you got to pay attention to it. That's what I would have to say to that.
Great. Well, Don, thanks for coming on Iron Pulse Solutions. Obviously, you're on LinkedIn. If people want to find you. You look great in your Clemson orange today, Don. And that's why you wore it today. So thanks for putting that on.
I need to reconsider my color choices next time, but I appreciate you calling me out.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Don.
Thanks.